Hey there, and welcome back to the channel. So God called me out on something last week, and it's taken a little bit for me to lick my wounds, but that's what this video is. This video is me being obedient to something I was called out on. And this came about because I thought I was working on a video that I was going to be uploading to YouTube. And God connected some dots for me in a very, maybe like an unlikely, unseeming kind of way. So the first part of this that happened was I just opened up my Bible one morning. I didn't know what I wanted to read. So I figured whatever I open up to is what we're going to go with. And I opened up to Amos. And in the book of Amos, God asks Amos, "What do you see?" And that was what stood out to me, that question, what do you see? And then I was connected with Ezekiel. Ezekiel is one of my favorite books of the Bible, and Ezekiel was my favorite prophet. So in the portion of Ezekiel that I'm talking about, God asks Ezekiel about the dry bones. Can these dry bones live? And so in the first one, God is saying, "What do you see?" And then the second one, God is asking the question, which is opening up the conversation of, what do you think can be done with what you see? So I'm like, okay, cool. I love this. I love the way these are going together. Like, I see this pattern. And then God says, yeah. And then also Jonah and Nineveh. And then I was like, okay, wait a minute, hold up. Because the story of Jonah is that God tells Jonah to go to Nineveh and say, "I'm going to declare judgment on you guys." And instead of Jonah wanting to go to Nineveh, Jonah's like, "No, I'm going to go do something else." And so he basically tries to run away from God. Now, Jonah does end up going to Nineveh. He ends up getting upset with God for being merciful. But the part of this story that God called me out on was not even the idea of judgment being called, but God giving a directive. God saying, "Hey, there's something I want you to do," and running in the opposite direction. And so I was called out for that. And so what God has wanted me to share that I feel like I've been called out on is that he's really, really expanding my view of him, of everything. And while my faith in Christianity is my foundation, the books that I'm reading right now, which is what I've been called to share with you, are they're different views. They're different views. And through this process, what God has been saying to me is, can you trust me with expanding your view? Can you trust me and know that your foundation is strong enough for you to be able to expand your view of me now? Not, it's more of an invitation and not being afraid of what religion can do to people, which is have the yeses and the nos and the do's and the don'ts and the rights and the wrongs and all of these things that we say are God, but they're really man. And so God has given me an invitation to expand my view through different texts. And these are what I'm currently reading right now. So, me and my Bible, I have my New King James Version, and then the New Living Translation here. I am also currently reading Autobiography of a Yogi. Now, I've been reading this book for, like a year or so, and I'm only on page 297. I'm at chapter 33. And this is the reason why, though. This book was my very first, how do I say it? My first introduction to healings and miracles happening in another culture, in other religions and cultures, very similar to Christ. And because of that, instead of reading this like a book that I normally would read in, a week, maybe two, instead it's turned into something that I'm slowly reading and allowing myself to digest, because I think that this may have been the first book that God used to begin to expand my view of him. And with that, The Art and Science of Raja Yoga. This is Kriya Yoga. And yeah, it's very interesting, the path that my life is taking right now. And then the last book that I'm reading is In the Buddha's Words. Now, I just came back last month from a 10-day Vipassana course, and which is rooted in Buddhism. It's philosophy, the philosophy side. And yeah, I think it's really interesting because I am finding God in all of it. I really am. And I know the difference between general spirituality and Christianity. I know that it's all about Jesus. So I'm not confusing anything here. What I am sharing, though, is that there is just such a big God that is ready to do so much through us. But the only way that can happen is if we take God out of the box. And the only way we can take God out of the box is to take ourselves out of the box, because God works through us. So this is me publicly showing that I am getting out of the box. And I'm allowing God to be really big in my life. So yeah, let's see what happens next. Curious to know what your path has looked like in your walk with God, and different spiritual journeys that you've had and different phases of your journey. Because I've had a lot of different phases, but they've all kind of stayed within the same realm. This is different. This is very different. And I'm ready for it. So, I'm sure the next video will be something that we're going to uncover and unpack together. And thank you for letting me share about my journey and for listening. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. Take care.